So talk to me about fights, right? And you say, yes, no one wins in a fight.
No one wins in a fight.
Tell me about that.
The thing is, man, most of the time fights come from stupidity. And it's either two guys have had too much to drink or it's always a girl involved. This guy said that. And for me, man, like I will tell you this, that I've always been, I do not want to fight. I do not want any issues. I am not some tough guy. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm Mr. Bad at. No, none of that. The more you can de-escalate things, the better with conversation and just walking someone out the door. Society's too hyped up on anger and just rage and this wild pain that's out there, man.
Outrage has become a hobby.
Yeah, man. And it's crazy to me because us old school guys, man, like it honestly was like, you don't fight unless you have to fight, dude. Like just keep the peace. Now, the rules I think were a little different back then too. There was a lot more respect. Two men went hand to hand. At the end of it, you stood up and you shook each other's hands. You know, that's the old school way of doing things. Hey, man, good fight. I'll see you next week. You know, of course, there's plenty of other scenarios that go into it. But I think for me, man, especially with the journey I'm on and the way I look at life and the perspective of things is the more you can keep the peace, the better. And if somebody is angry, usually there's something internal that they're dealing with. And that's one of the biggest things is getting down to what is going on in you as to why you're so angry in this situation right now, which really, if you step back and look at it, is a very minuscule situation. And you are so hyped up and you're so angry and you're mad about this guy did that. Okay, what's really going on inside? Now, I can't pull you aside and have a
therapy
session with you right here and now, but I'll tell you what, man, most of the time, if you can just have a conversation with someone, you can usually de-escalate it pretty easily. It's more important to keep the peace, respect each other, shake hands, and walk out the door.
Now, talk to me about run-ins with the authorities and the law, and you had some of these during your younger years.
I think that's environmental, man. Growing up in the environments we did, we grew up in rough neighborhoods where it wasn't that you were going to look for trouble or you were trying to get in trouble per se, but when you're street kids, that's what you do. Everything from there's drug dealers on the corners, there's gangs on every side of you. You're going to have run-ins with the law. And what I learned over the years is that never ends well. I have the utmost respect for our law enforcement. I got some great friends that are in law enforcement and our military. And I'll tell you what, man, like it's better to be on the good side of the law than it is the bad side of the law. And when you're a young teenage kid, honestly, you don't really know different, especially if you're growing up in these neighborhoods where that's all you know. Nobody's teaching you any different. And I think once you get out of those environments and you realize, oh, hey, this isn't a good path of life, then you go, all right, I understand how the world works. And when you really sit down, I've been very blessed to have great friends that are in law enforcement and have conversations with them. And over the years, just watched what they do to protect our cities and protect our country. They're not given enough respect. There needs to be more respect for our law enforcement. Without them, it'd be chaos. And we see that right now with defunding the police and let people run amok and do
all
what
the
they
riots.
Want. Yeah. So it's number one, respect the law. Number two, respect the people that are protecting you each and every day, because they've still got families to go home to as well. And these guys put their lives on the line every single day. That's something that I don't think people fully take into account. They don't think about, oh, that's another human being across from me, and he's just trying to do his job. If you're not doing anything wrong, he's not, for the most part, they're not going to bother you.
Yeah. I always think about them like sharks. I'm like, I want to stay away, but you don't want to mess with them.
No, you don't, man.
I support the police, but I don't like it when they drive behind me. So.
And I think that's funny too, man, is like everybody, oh my God, there's a cop behind me. Listen, he's probably just trying to get to the station, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really looking to mess with you too much. And nobody's perfect. There's bad apples in every aspect of life, man. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, we love our law enforcement guys. In fact, on the website, we have a law enforcement collection, which is our sheriffs and police collection that we have. I've been very blessed to have some amazing friends in the business. Most of these men and women are so damn humble, dude. They never talk about the things they do that you don't see. All the crap you see online of, oh, he did this, he did it. How about all the kids that they help that they don't talk about? How about all the families they help that they don't talk about? Just here locally, man, they do a toy drive every year, and they're giving brand new bikes and toys to all these kids that don't have anything, man. And they don't talk about it. I think that's one thing that needs to be talked about more, is what these men and women do in our community on a daily basis, and the families that they do help and the families they do support. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of bad people in this world, and you have kids that are abused or hurt, and their line of defense may just be that person coming to the house and protecting them.
Now, talk to me about mentors that you've had over the years.
I've had a lot of good people in my life, man. I've been very fortunate. When I came out to this area, I was still, I say a street kid because I was still young. And I had a lot of good older men that I started working for that were like, hey, you got to get yourself in order here, man. Men and women, by the way. I have a couple great friends that are females that are very successful, and like were older friends of mine that said, hey, you got to get your head on straight if you're going to make it in this world. A mentor can be anybody that is guiding you in the right direction, whether that's someone you work for or a friend of yours. We talked a little bit earlier about the differences between bosses and leaders. Technically, everybody has a boss when they go to work, but a lot of those bosses can be leaders, and they can actually show you a different path. Or, hey, man, stop screwing up over here. I've got a good thing for you over here. And a lot of times, I think in our younger years, especially as men, we're too damn dumb and too damn stubborn. We don't listen until the cards start falling.
Yeah.
And we go, oh, okay. I've got a friend, and she said, what are you doing with your life, man? Like, you've got these great things starting to go for you, but you're over here partying and doing these things and running amok every day. Like, where are you going with your life? And it took me back for a second, but it makes you look at the perspective and go, hey, you're right. What am I doing with my life? And life is a journey, and I think a lot of times you got to go through these things in order to become who you are. Yeah, I think as far as mentor-wise, take little pieces from different people in your life. Keep your circle small. Do your best to evaluate who's around you, who really is around you for the right reasons. In my 20s, I was working multiple fun jobs between nightclubs and restaurants and the entertainment business a little bit, and I had 15, 20 people around me sometimes. I loved it. We had fun.
But were they real friends?
Were they real friends? Where are they now? That's the whole thing. You'll learn over the years, man. And this is something for guys especially. I think real men, like as friends, we don't have to talk to each other all the time. I've got friends that I talk to once a year, once every couple years. But if something went down, I could call them and they'd be here in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Those are true friends.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't need to talk to you every day. We don't need to conversate about whatever's going on social media or football or whatever else. But I know at the end of the day, hey, man, I'm in a bind. I need some help here. That dude's going to be there for me. Now, that takes years of experience and learning. You know what? These guys were just here because we were making money and having a good time and drinking beers. And, the money's flowing. The drinks are flowing.
It's like the prodigal son story. You know, when
man.
he didn't have any money left, it's like all those friends disappeared.
Absolutely, man. And you see it all the time. You'll see it all the time, man. I've been in the nightclub industry for as long as I have. I've seen people go through it where they'd have 6, 7 people with them, and all of a sudden they come in by themselves. Yeah, man, like just not making the money I was, and so-and-so's doing this and that. And what it really comes down to
just sad.
is, they're just around because of the hype.
Yeah.
Are who's going to really be with you or be there for you when the chips are down?
Yes. Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to my buddy Ray, because I was stranded up in Ridgecrest at one point, and I called him up, and he was able to drive 3 hours out and come get me just with no notice.
Yeah.
And he made it happen, and I was like, man, that's a true friend right there.
Absolutely.
And that only comes through years of common experience and
Absolutely,
love and
man.
respect. So
Building that friendship with them and that camaraderie and knowing that you'll be there for each other. It's cool, man, because I feel like where I'm at in life, I've got a good group of guys around me, and I am good with that. I don't need 50 people in my life. I've got some great people in my life right now, and just keeping that circle small is important because the smaller the circle, the less influence from the outside. And especially if you're on a journey and you've got goals and you've got focus that you're trying to get to, man, you can't be distracted. You just can't. I'll give you a funny example. So I don't watch a lot. I don't even have TV. I have YouTube, and for my son, I have Disney Plus, and we have, what else do we have? I think we have Amazon or whatever. We don't watch a lot of TV.
yeah, that's
And
good.
so,
He's not an iPad kid.
no, he has his iPad time. So he plays his video games and he'll watch some YouTube here and there. But for the most part, yeah, we try to play outdoors. We try to do stuff outside, or right now he's in jiu-jitsu. He just finished soccer. He'll start a chess club next week. But it's interesting because Mike and I were at work last night, and with my dad, I grew up a 49ers fan. And back in the day, being in the bar business, what did you do? There was always a TV on. There was always sports on. You're always watching football or baseball or whatever. I didn't even know the 49ers were in the playoffs last night. And I looked over and I was like, oh, Mike came out. He's like, it's Green Bay versus 49ers. I was like, oh, I had no idea. And there's nothing against, just to be clear, I have nothing against watching sports and entertainment and all those things because we all need a break here and there. But when you are focused on certain goals, man, and you have 3 hours to work on this or 3 hours to watch a game, I'm going to spend 3 hours working on this.
You got to make sacrifices.
You do.
To make your dreams happen.
Absolutely.
No one's going to do it for you.
No.
Something that you said earlier about bosses and leaders, I heard a great quote I wanted to mention, which was, the boss has the title, but the leader has the people.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a good one.
I think the other thing is you don't need to be recognized as a leader. A leader knows who they are, and his team knows who he is. I think you have a world full of bosses, and then you've got this small pocket of leaders that are up and coming in the world. That I think it's one of the reasons why, with one of the good things about social media, is we are getting some of these guys out there that are talking about being leaders. It's talking about men being leaders and from a young age and finding themselves and, hey man, I know I've got some worth here. I want to follow that guy because I see where he's going with things. I want to do that because I saw that guy do that, which is cool because back in the day before this, you didn't have that. You just had the people around you and whatever was on TV, which obviously we know is a bunch of fake script crap. So that's the great thing about social media now is you've got guys that are really putting real stuff out there. Hey man, this is what I do every day. I'm a plumber. This is what I do. I show you my plumbing every day. And by the way, here's a few tidbits about life. Maybe you can learn from me. Those are leaders. Men that go out there every single day and bust their ass to pay the bills, those are our real leaders. Boss who sits there and chews everybody's ass out because corporate monsters are telling him I've got to meet this quota and that quota, those are bosses. Now, I was very fortunate when I was young and I was working in the warehouses. I remember I had two guys that I worked for, two amazing guys, man. I'd go to hell and high water for these guys because of the way they treated us. Because my boss, in quotations there, he would come out on the floor, he'd jump in a forklift, and he'd drive around and load docks and do whatever needed to be done to get the job done. That's leadership. So that word boss can be in there, but there has to be leadership behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
If my guys have to go take the trash out, I'm willing to take the trash out too.
Yeah.
If you say, oh, that's not my job, I don't do that, I don't want you on my team because we're all a team here.
Yeah, the second you say that's not my job, you lose, right?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other thing about role models is that no one person is going to be the perfect role model. And so really what you want to do is just observe the different traits from a few different people in that close circle, like you were saying, build a hybrid for yourself and how you want to live.
Yeah, and we're all different, man. So, I can take from you and you can take from me. And I go, hey, I really like what he did with this. I really like that. And let me pull some of this and let me pull some of that. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're all coming from something and we're all learning from each other. And as long as you take that in a positive direction, you can do amazing things, man. You being a skateboard guy, you clearly know who Rob Diedrich is. And
Rob Deerdeck.
Deerdeck.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know if you've seen his podcast lately.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
the Build with Rob, is that what it's called?
Man.
Yeah.
And the info he's putting out there, but listen to what he says, man, because he even talks about just 10 years ago. He's like, dude, I was creating all these things. He's like, but I had no idea about a budget and this and that. So he started learning from other guys and said, hey, sure, you're making $8 million, but you spent $8 million. What are you doing here? So he was smart enough to say, hey, I'm the skateboard kid. I'm building these brands, started building amazing things, Ridiculousness and Rob and Big and all these other shows. And the thing is, he was learning like, hey, I need to take from this person and that person and add that to my resume, and I can build my repertoire from here. And look at how successful he is now. The guy's going to end up being a billionaire at some point.
Yeah, he's legit. I love him. And he's so funny, too.
He is.
I loved watching his show growing up. His shows growing up.
Yeah.